And just to jump ahead, my name is Sarah Leonard. I'm with the Corporate Research Center. I'm also a national advocate for victims of mass violence. I had the privilege of meeting Holly Wiggins at our Women's Entrepreneurship Conference hosted by Laura Townsend a few months ago. And I was so happy to have a one-on-one coaching opportunity with her this week so that I could report the 3 major changes in my life that I have been able to make since having her push of inspiration. So I hope that you're able to glean some awesome catalysts for growth in your life from her presentation. And if we could give a round of applause, Miss Holly Wiggins.
Sarah is such a great hype person, and as soon as I am at a place, I'm going to recruit her and employ her on some other.
We rise together.
Yes, together we all rise. So welcome, ladies. My name is Holly Wiggins, and I'm here to talk to you today on how to bounce back like a boss and leverage resilience as your superpower. So you should, as I'm talking, be working on that worksheet I sent you. It is really crucial for us to understand what your resiliency score is at this stage of the game. If you don't, so you can do it one or two ways. One, you can just put 1 tick for every item that you've experienced in the last 12 months. Or you can go all in and calculate the score, which is also fun to do if you want to see the results at the bottom. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that while I get myself a little bit more ordered. Please go through as quick as you can. We want to understand where you're at in your stress levels and what you've experienced in the last 12. And we can even stretch it out to 18 months. So let's say in a window of 12 to 18 months. And Mr. Hashami, I hope you would also do the worksheet. I did leave you one back there as well for your participation. I want to just recognize this gentleman right here. This is my boyfriend, and also the only reason I'm here on time today dressed, because he did all the other extra stuff of checking out and everything. So yes, today, and putting out the worksheets. Thank you, Dave. So, all right. So yes, ladies, let's jump in on that for about a minute and a half. And we'll get us started. Would you like a pencil? Yeah. Now, why I'm going to talk while you guys are working on this. One of the reasons I am giving time to this is that this was marketed as an interactive workshop where you could actually take some time to pause in your life and think. Because especially as women, even though this is for women and men, I find that we're often so busy helping everybody else that we don't actually check in with our own selves and see where we're at. So we're going to hold 1 or 2 minutes in this shop for you to have some time to do that. And I'll know you're finished when you put your pen down and kind of just look up or look around. That's when I'll know we're almost all together done.
I love the last one, jaywalking.
Just jaywalking, just the stress of I'm gonna maybe die, but I've got to go. I know.
I did that one time, long time ago. I was in Vegas and the cop yelled out, you can't cross there, you know, and I was like, I'm not from here. And he was like, jaywalking is like everywhere. Yeah, it's the same law everywhere. Oh yeah, you're right.
That's so funny. Yeah, I've heard another story. They take jaywalking very serious in Vegas. I heard a very similar story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of you that are on the Zoom, I know that we have some people on the Zoom. I want to welcome you today. My name is Holly Wiggins. I'm so glad to see you today and that you're able to join us. If after this, there'll be an opportunity to contact me or reach out to me. If you also would like access to these worksheets, I will send them to you and you can employ them in your life. So mainly in this moment, take stock that we are doing a worksheet and we'll have 2 today, but I'm happy to share those with you after the session. So it's great to see everyone and shout out to you, Cindy. All right. So with that, ladies, I'm going to start moving us forward. So I'm going to start with my story and you guys can wrap up as I start talking. So what you see here first is the highlight reel. And the highlight reel is often what you see on social media as well, or maybe what you see on Sunday or at a religious gathering, or just those moments in life where you only see people's highlights and you don't see their day to day. So my highlight reel is as such, and these are the ones I'm featuring today. So I work at the U.S. Department of Agriculture as my day job. And in that role, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for USDA Science. So what does that mean? I bring roughly 200 plus PhDs and researchers together across the Department of Agriculture to align our research priorities and to basically spin down and strategize how we're going to spend our $4 billion research budget every year. And so my role as a strategist, I don't have a PhD, which is often a whole fun conversation in that group of people, but it's really been a very rewarding opportunity. It's one of the things I do in my day job. Before that, and in the last, I would say 15 years or so, I had a boutique consulting job that I moonlighted in. Really was just a result of working with someone who liked to work with me. And when they left, they continued to hire me. So in that role, I was able to grow my consulting business to almost $500,000 in a few years, 4 years, on only referral business alone. And it was something I was very proud of. I don't actually do that portion any longer. I phased it out last year, but it's something from my life. I've also had over 10 years in private industry before federal government. So I'm at 16 years in federal government, 10 years in private industry. And in that, I worked in 7 different industries, which included consumer products, branding, manufacturing, and marketing. In my role as a product manager, product innovator, and brand strategist, I created 3 different product lines: family jewelry, books, and service type products. They went into major retail chains. They were, in most cases of the company I worked for, historical bestsellers. They were home runs. Really, really proud of that. They were in Amazon, Target, Walmart, and other international chains like that. In my job, usually in my day job, I function as an intrapreneur. So that means I drive a lot of change. I leverage a lot of influence, leadership through influence, not through explicit titles and roles, to drive organizational change and innovation. So I've done that for a long time. And now currently I'm a founder, a consultant, and a coach for a new brand product that I'm working on, again, nights and weekends. It's called Ladies Level Up and Holly Wiggins Coaching. And in that role, my #1 mission is to elevate the stories and voices of other women, to focus us on building a tribe of collaboration and not competition, and to make things that we often thought, like Danielle here knows AI, that are often inaccessible for women, or we're scared to try, to make those things accessible through skilling up. We're also building a community around this. So it's going to be a very distinct community. The people in the community will agree to a certain set of values, core being collaboration and not competition. And in that, it will be a way of women opening doors and lifting up other women. Like Sarah said, together we all rise. That's the highlight reel. That is not reality though, right? That's what you see on LinkedIn. Here's the rest of the story. So like most of others, I grew up small town girl, Louisiana, DeRidder, Louisiana, to be exact. I did things with my sister like fishing on the bayou. I had horses. I was a member of 4-H. I lived on a farm. I did some modeling as a young girl. I did English writing. So my childhood was pretty fun for the most part. I would say I had some good successes. I was student body president, student council president, went on to college at Oral Roberts University right after school, had a great experience there, met my husband, we got married, we did all the things right that were modeled to me. You save yourself for marriage, you marry a Christian man, you do all these things, and God will bless your life. And so I did that. He was a spiritual life dorm director at ORU, and had a wonderful wedding. This is me and my father. I'll never forget the dance I had with him. Friends came to my wedding. It was a big blowout in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then we went with my parents to launch a church in Austin, Texas called Christian Family Church. And if you've ever launched any business, you know that's like giving birth in of its own. And the church was my baby. And so with my husband, I was the associate pastor. We were ordained associate pastors. My parents were the senior pastors. I led the children's ministry and the youth ministry. And I worked a full-time day job where I did all this product marketing stuff we talked about. So this was kind of I did the cookie cutter fairy tale recipe, and this is where I ended up. I bought my first home across the street from my parents, admittedly. This is what it looks like. This has been my first and only home I've ever owned. Brand new home, 4 bedrooms, Austin, Texas again. And we had the life. We were building a family. We were living across the street from my parents. We were running a church. We had a business. And then when I turned age 29, just getting ready for 30, actually, so the end of my 29th year before I turned 30, the whole floor fell out from underneath me. And all at once. Have you guys ever had that where it seems like not just one thing happens, but all the things happen, right? Yes. It's funny how the life happens. So when on my 30th birthday, I found out that my husband, the pastor, associate pastor, had been having multiple encounters behind my back. I discovered this through the internet. I found out that it actually predated our marriage. It had been happening in Tulsa. It wasn't with me. It wasn't with women. So there was a separate complication being in the church. It was a same-sex situation. And so I actually felt the first senses of major betrayal in my life because I had checked all the boxes and done all the things I was told to do. And this is what happened. So that happened. I discovered it. I confronted him, cried, he admitted it. We then decided to stay together for 2 more years and go through counseling. So I think I found out around 27. We stayed until I turned 30. On my 30th birthday, he threw me a birthday party. I came home and found out he was still having sex with other people. And so at that moment on my 30th birthday, it was time to change my life. I couldn't do it anymore. I had been in counseling with him and I had been told that if I continued on this path, I was exposing my health because of the addictive behaviors that he was bringing into the marriage bed. So that happened. So then I went through a divorce, but then one of the complications of the divorce is that he wasn't going to work. He was living out his addiction. And so he got fired for dishonest money dealings, which then led us into not only a divorce, but a bankruptcy. So we lost that house that you saw in the picture the same year, lost everything except the student loans, was able to keep that. And so how many of you guys know that situation? Yes. So went through the bankruptcy, had a tremendous amount of loss. Immediately during that period, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so then she also had to, so we stepped down from the church. She had to step down from the church and we went immediately into breast cancer survival for my mom. And they were also dealing with a lot of things. And then my grandmother died that year. And I was close to her. So I actually sat with her. I was in the room holding her hand as she took her last breath. It was just me and her. So all of that was happening all at the same time. And then there was some additional major illness in my life, as well as with my other family members. So long story short, this is often what happens in our life behind the highlight reel. And as women, as leaders, and mostly as women, we are ingrained to put the mask on and to smile and to take care of everyone else. Does anyone know what I'm talking about right now? Yeah. So this was a period of 18 months. All these things happened. So I would have scored really high on these at that time. But how many of you know that success is never a straight line? It's often like this, right? It's like squiggly and messy. And sometimes you are moving forward when you don't even realize you're moving forward. You're making progress when you don't even realize you're making progress. And so one of the things at that period of my life, a mentor came into my life and encouraged me to go back to school. And she said, education is something that no one can ever take away from you. So I went back to school, got my MBA. Yes, shout out to Sarah, who just made a major decision. Where are you going? Tell us.
I'm going to BC for Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness and Spring.
Yes, sister. That is awesome. Yes. So she told me, nobody can take education away from you. Relationships come and go. Education is an investment in yourself. So I went back to school in Texas, got my MBA, went and through a professional program. So went and got it all in 1 year. But then it was 2007-8. And if any of you remember, that's when the mortgage business flattened out and everything crashed. So with my new MBA set of confidence, the only job I could get was to wait tables. I went to interview. And I was waiting tables at Cheesecake Factory, eating their bread on my breaks, gaining all the weight. And just dealing with that moment of I would come, people would sit down and they would demand water and then lemon and then lemonade and then bread and then bread. And I kept thinking, I have an MBA and you're treating me this way. But we know sometimes we go through that, right? We're in situations where we know who we are, but the world doesn't recognize it. And it's very humbling. Has anyone ever experienced anything like that? So that was my world as well. So what did I do? I put my bootstraps on. I put a bunch of resumes together. I started going around town and going to recruitment. Back then they had temp agencies that you could do things with. So I went to temp agencies, and through a set of relationships, someone told me to go to a job fair. So I went to a job fair. I met a military man who told me that his wife worked at the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. He said, "You have a hustle. I like your hustle. Would you move to Washington, D.C.?" I was like, "Yes, sir. I would do anything at this point." So he put me in contact with his wife. I did a bunch of interviews. I was given a job in Washington, D.C. I went through all the background checks. I got the certified letter, and it was time to go. So this picture is me. And I guess I should mention, after I lost my home in the bankruptcy, I went across the street and lived with my parents. So this is me at my parents' house. And by the way, that meant every morning I woke up, looked out the window, and watched the new people move into my home. But this is me at my parents' house. This is me at midnight. Dahim will appreciate trying to figure out what to take in 2 duffel bags to relocate to Washington, D.C. Because I put everything I owned in storage. I was living in mom's bedroom. And I was like, I'm going to DC. I don't know what to wear. I don't know what to dress. I just got to go. I have a job. So we were packing. My mother, to her credit, stayed up all night. About midway through, we realized I didn't have the right luggage. So we made a midnight run to Walmart, or as my dad likes to say, Walmart's. And we bought 2 duffel bags that you can see right there. And then we packed till 2 in the morning so I could make the plane the next day. And this is just a huge testament to my mother. She's always had my back in multiple occasions. And she had my back at that point as well. So next morning I jump on a plane. I go to a city I've never been to with my 2 duffel bags and hopefully the right clothes, which later I found out they were not. And I don't have anywhere to stay because this is 2008. Airbnb doesn't exist. Uber doesn't exist. The only way you find places to stay is through either paying for hotels, which I didn't have the money for, or renting rooms off Craigslist, which I took a risk and did. So I rented a room with this woman. This is the bedroom I rented. She was also struggling from the bottom out of the market. So she had to rent her bedroom out and sleep on her couch in her own home. So I rented her bedroom. This is it right here. And this is her. And she was a professor in DC. And she was the first face I saw. And together we figured out what I was going to do in DC. So, so this is a special period as well. Yes, yes, yeah. It was just a whole different experience coming from the little small town South. But you know, you learn as you go. So I get there. I'm so excited, only to find out that the job that they moved me, that I moved for, fell through. So, right. So this is where I didn't know enough about the government to know that if they had given me a certified letter, I could have legally said, no, this is a promise, this is a contract. But when I got there, they said, we're sorry, there was something wrong with the FTEs. We had the count wrong. We actually don't have a job to offer you. So yeah, we'll let you know. Maybe we can find you something else. Well, I was already in DC. I didn't have return money. So I called my mom up. I'm like, what should I do? And she's like, honey, I'm going to take some money out of my inheritance from my mom. Her mom had just died. And she said, I'll pay for you to stay there. I really feel this is what you're supposed to do. Just stay there. So then I printed up, this is back in the day where you print cards up. So I printed up little cards that said, Holly Wiggins, little business cards. And I went all over DC to think tank events. Like all of the universities, much like here, have open things where there's like, you know, someone wrote a book and they're getting together to talk about the book they wrote. So I would go to all these free events and just walk up and be like, hi, I'm Holly. I'm new. I'm interested in international relations. I just moved here. Do you have a job for me? And I just went around and like schlepped my cards around and tried to get a job. Finally, I made a connection. Long story short, did an interview, ended up getting another job at USDA that was 2 grades higher, and it was $35,000 more than the one I moved for. So it ended up working out. But again, life lesson, you just never know how things are playing out and you have to keep going, right? So now my DC life ended up being really great from that point on. I mean, there were highs and lows, but I made a lot of neat friends. I lived there from 2008 till last October, so just over 16 years, through a series of hustling and a lot of things. There's a lot more to the story, like I'm sure you all have. There were good and bad. There was good bosses, bad bosses, lots of bullying, lots of friends, lots of getting out, amazing opportunities with the government to travel and do things. And then I also continued to invest in my education. So I went and got another master's. I studied at University of Oxford, and then I also got a leadership program at American University. So again, just continuing on. But why do I show you all that? Because the stories we tell ourselves matter. So this story could be told 2 ways. It could be told from a victim's point of view or from a victor's point of view. And it's really important when we think about our life. How are we telling the story of our life? And what meaning are we extracting from that? So now what I'd like to do is go to the Holmes writing, the handout that I gave you, the stress inventory, and just check in with you guys. Because what we know is that there is a direct correlation to stress-inducing incidents and health. And our ability to process those incidents definitely have a correlation to how we make meaning out of it, how we move forward, how we chart our life. Do we get stuck? Do we get sick? Do we get cancer, hardening of the arteries, all those kinds of things? So what is this? This was developed in 1967 by psychiatrists Thomas Holmes and Richard Ray. And it's basically a scale that was based on, I'm sorry, this is blocking, but it was based on basically 5,000 medical patients who were asked to rate the life-changing events that they had experienced in 2 years. So we kind of limited you guys to 12 months or 18. So I'm really interested to see how many of you scored at least 50 points on this? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you scored 75? Okay. How many of you scored 100? All right. So that's a lot of people in the room still. How many of you scored? Huh? 150? Raise your hand if you're at 150. Okay. 175. All right. 2, 3, 200. 2 people. 250. 2 people. All right. Let's go up to 300. Anybody over 300? Where did you end up, Sarah?
I got a 591.
591.
Yeah.
Yeah. Solid. Yeah. So why is this important? I want you to sit with this for a minute. I want you to think about, first of all, I want you to go give yourself love right now. And think about the things that you've gone through just in like 12 to 18 months. Think about how that has impacted your heart, how that's impacted your relationships, your energy, the way you see yourself. Are you a person that is hard on yourself? Do you get stuck in bitterness? Do you make meaning out of it? But this first piece that I wanted to do is I just wanted you to have an assessment to check in with yourself. You can see on here that they say that 300 points or more raises the odds to about 80% that you're going to have stress-induced health problems. That range from 150 to 300 is a 50% chance of major stress-induced health problems in the next 2 years. And then if you're 150 or less, you're in a low space, but you still have some susceptibility to stress-induced health problems. So resiliency actually matters. It really, really is important that you think about the things that we can't control, right? Which sometimes we have no control over what happens on this list. But what we can control is how we learn the skill and the art of processing it. So I want to talk to you now about your story. I want you to think a little bit about your story. You heard my story. Now let's think about your story a little bit. Let's think about some of the items on that list right now. So resiliency is defined as the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. And that's from the Oxford Dictionary. There's actually a lot of good definitions of resiliency. This is the one I like. And what I like about it is it's the ability to withstand. If you were here earlier, you would know that Dave Heeman's been speaking about cyber resiliency. And he's been talking about the ability for airports not just to not have incidences, but actually recover from those incidents quickly. And so in the same way in our life, resiliency is our ability not only to not have, it's not saying that we're not going to have trauma, but it is our ability to recover and recover quickly and to develop toughness. It's a must-have skill for success and personal growth. There's no way to go through life healthy, lead others, and take care and care for others if you don't embrace the development of resiliency in your life. It's not really just about bouncing back. It's actually the piece here that I have in bold. It's actually the learning from it, the learning from the setbacks. That is the key to getting through it. So again, when we think about the stories we tell, is it from the perspective of the victim? This happened to me. Woe is me. I hate them. Or is it from the perspective of Victor? This happened to me. I learned a lot. I pivoted my life, and now look at me. It truly is a muscle that can be developed over time. And like I said, if you're an entrepreneur or a leader, and I would even venture to say a woman, it's a must-have. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pass another worksheet out on that. And I want to hold a little bit of space in this meeting. So in my coaching business, a lot of reason why women come to me is because they've gone through a transition of some sort or a trauma of some sort, and they know they need to make a change. That's usually why people look for help. So in that case, what I like to do is start with whatever the setback was and try to make sense out of that. So this is one of the tools that I have. And if you're on the call today with us, I'm holding up what's called a bounce back review. It says reflect and rise. So what I want you to do while I'm talking is, we're not going to do all of this in here. You can take this home, but I at least want you to think of one event in this moment that you are committing to get some alone time and fill this worksheet out. So go ahead in this top space right here where it says event or situation. I want you to fill that out, and I want you to put around the time, the date that event happened. And so what I like to do with my ladies, my clients is I want them to get in the habit of doing what we call in the business world a postmortem. When we go through things, we can either just go through them and take them out in our body at a cellular level, take them in our heart, or we can actually extract the meaning. And so one of the reasons this workshop is here today is to begin to train you and give you a tool to extract the meaning and then leverage that intel to make a pivot or a change for improvement. So I'm going to be quiet for a second and let you guys think about your event or situation and about the time that it happened. Now, as you're wrapping up your event, I'm going to kind of walk through some of the prompts on here and talk about them for a second. So this tool will ask you to first document as an observer, as if you were a scientist observing the behavior of something, to document what happened. So in this first section where it says what happened, share the key events of the story or situation. I want to encourage you, if you're taking notes on how to do this tool, I want to encourage you just the facts, please. Just the facts. What happened? Tell the story. You know, I went here, I moved to DC, I thought I had a job, the job fell through, I wandered around for 3 months, I finally found a job, whatever, just the facts. The next section, and why is it important to be an observer? Does anyone know why it's important to be an observer of those things that happen first? Yes. So less bias, is that what you said? Yes, yes. Did you say less? Yeah. Okay, I want to make sure I heard you. Yeah. Yes, you're exactly correct. To remove the bias from the situation, to remove the judgment. Because when you can slightly, and this is a skill, when you can take yourself out of it and be present with just the facts and remove the bias, remove the judgment, you now have the ability to do a deeper analysis on what happened and what are you going to extract from it. Now, my caveat to all of this is that trauma, in my case, and many other cases, usually requires some sort of support professionally. I spent 18 months doing EMDR therapy through counseling. I'm a massive believer in the power of counseling and coaching. I have a counselor, Dahim knows that I can call up when I need something, that I keep her on speed dial. And so this is not a replacement for that. What this is a tool to build a strategy for your life forward. And so you may need to do this alongside other professionals that you're working with, and I highly encourage that. But what happened is the first thing. Secondly, now we're going to talk a little bit about the feeling. Like, how do I feel? And I know from working with people, it's really hard to get into like, how do I feel? Sometimes, usually when you ask someone how they feel, they tell you an opinion about the situation. But what, like, if you were ever in counseling ever in your life and you remember the little chart that has all the little smiley faces or the emoji faces, like with like smile and sad, like getting one of those feeling charts and identifying how you feel is really critical. So where am I currently at with my feelings on this event? And it's okay to have more than one feeling. In fact, it's quite often that you might feel both angry and sad. You might feel happy, and relieved, but also depressed. So what this section is where are we at with our feelings? And it's okay to have more than one. And it's just good to catalog that. Now, this is where it's going to ask you to start thinking. And this is why I really want to encourage you ladies to take this later and work on it. What was hard about this? What about this event or situation was difficult to experience and why? So again, we're refraining from judgment, but we are looking at it from the way it felt from our perspective. What was hard? So in my case, my story, it was hard to go to DC, not know anyone, never be to that city, be completely alone, and then not have a sense of income. It was very scary. It didn't feel safe. Women often have a need to feel safe. And so that would be a hard thing for me, is like not knowing where my money was coming from and how I was going to survive. So what was hard and why? And then the next thing, now this is where you're going to have to start digging deep. And if you still have a lot of emotion around the event, this might be challenging. But what did I learn? And this requires you now to step a little bit out of your ego and be more of truly honest with yourself. What did I learn? What did I learn through this? What did I learn through this experience? And what did I learn about myself? So for me, what I learned, and I'll go back to my example, I could say, I learned that I get scared, but do it anyway. I face fear. I learned that in any city, you can look up, talk to a stranger, and be drawn by common humanity. People aren't as scary as we think they are. All right, the next section is grateful. What am I grateful for? And then stronger. So what am I grateful for? What good came from having this experience? Next one is stronger. What strengths did I discover about myself and the experience that I'm proud of? And again, this is a data point for you. You might find that you're good at something you didn't realize. You might find that you're starting to be good at something that you want to develop. This next section is really key. The never again. Are there any changes or non-negotiables that I learned from this experience to employ going forward? I can look back at some betrayals in relationships where I have never again sections. Never again will I settle for crumbs. Never again will I settle for dishonesty, right? So are there any never agains? Never again will I put a relationship above my destiny or calling. So what are the never agains you got from this situation? And that feeds into the next one, which are there boundaries that you need to make adjustments on? Are there any new updates to my boundaries to employ going forward after having this experience? So why am I asking you to do this in your setback? Because a postmortem in business tells us what worked, what didn't work, where do we make adjustments? And this is how you build the muscle of resiliency. This is how you get outside of your emotion and you begin to extract intel. And there's nothing more powerful in building a life strategy than intel about who you are, what you like, and what you want to create. So this last section is that right there. What will I create going forward? Based on this experience, what do I want my life to look like going forward after having this experience? What do I desire? What do I want? Have there been any shifts in my perspective on life going forward? Now, I use the word create because if you work with me, you'll know that I believe in a holistic view of life. I wouldn't just coach you just on a mental state alone. You would have to be agreeable that you believe in some version of spirituality. You would have to be agreeable that you believe in work-life balance, that you practice mindfulness, because I do believe that as humans and as women, we are creators of the life we have. I don't believe in victim mentality. I don't believe in waiting to be rescued. And so trauma and setbacks give us the data points we need to decide what are we creating going forward. And that gets to speaking to your story. As you process the event, I want you to be a curious observer. I want you to reflect with the mindset of what am I creating? What story am I writing going forward? Is your story victim or victor? So I want to talk for a second really quick about create and what does that mean a little more, but I want to do a time check because I just scanned the whole room and see no clock in here.
40.
Huh? 40? Okay, thank you. So there's an idea that I got later in life. It didn't come up from my religious upbringing. I have morphed into this through my life path. And I find it very useful, and I teach it with the people I work with. And that is to refrain from making life about being good or bad. To not look at these experiences, this was a good experience, this was a bad experience. And it is really hard to do. And I can't say I stay in that always, but instead, I look at it as there's what I want, and then there's contrast to what I want. There's what I desire to have, the life and the experience I desire to have. And then there's just the contrast to that. Not good, not bad, just the contrast. And through the contrast, I further refine what I want. So through the trauma, through the hardships, I learn more about what I want. So you could say it like this. You could say, I thought I wanted this life. I thought I wanted this person. I thought I wanted this kind of relationship. Didn't pan out. How do I feel about it? I feel sad. I feel disappointed. But really, why do I feel sad and disappointed? Because what I know now through that contrast is I want to feel safe. I want to feel validated. I want to have an open communication with my person and not feel like I'm going to be judged for asking questions or told I'm needy. So through contrast, we define what we want to create. And so we create through contrast. So part of resiliency, part of bouncing back like a boss, is learning how to repackage and rethink what happened to you, the story, doing a postmortem analysis, and then taking not the bad, but the contrast and saying, this is in contrast to the life I want. This is the life I want. And why is it powerful to flip it on its head? Because what we focus on is what we attract. So if all you do is focus on the bad, the contrast, the bad, blah, 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 ultimately, you see it more of that in your life. You're going to attract people that think that way. You're going to find relationships that are that way, job environments. But if you begin to focus on the creative side, this is what I want. I want an open, happy, secure relationship. I want a job that I can work anywhere in the world. And when I wake up every day, I'm pouring good into the world and not separation and defiance. I want to not have to worry about money. I want to be able to give to my family without any fear. I want to wake up and see the people I love around me. That is the creative part that you'll learn through resilient opportunities. So let's think about the story that we talked about on your sheet right now. When you go away from today, what I want you to do is think about, how are you personally going to apply the insights from this story? Again, if you work with me, I'm a big believer that you'll appreciate this. I had a relationship that I dated in DC for 10 years on and off. The irony was that person betrayed me. I didn't know it until the very end, and was also the best mentor coach in my life I ever had. Because often in life, nothing is ever good or bad. It's usually somewhere in between, right? And so when I think about this person now, not a great partner for me, not the kind of creative relationship I want, but man, did I learn so much about myself. And now part of me wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for that. And one of the things he used to do is he used to hold his hand like this, and he used to do this like a camera. And he'd say, you're the star of your own show. This is your movie. What are you doing with it? Quit waiting on everybody else. This is you. Days are passing. This is your movie. What are you doing? And I feel the same way now. I adopted that belief. When you look at this and it asks you, what are you going to do? What did you learn? What are you going to create? It is because ultimately, ladies, it is in your hands. No one is going to rescue you, and no one's going to do it for you. And the sooner you can get to that point, the more effective your life is going to go. So what actions will you be taking to build a mission-driven life? Why do I use this whole idea about mission-driven and authentic? Leverage the learnings to plan your authentic life. Because most of us, somehow through a series of being really good at something or making a choice to support, marry, or take care of others, have been pigeonholed into a role that we maybe aren't as excited about as we could be. And we wake up every day doing the duty because we're good at it and we made the commitment, but we feel the lack of inspiration. And so a lot of the people that I work with are very similar to my own story, which is I do the job I have to do to fund my business, but now I'm doing the business I love as an off ramp in the future to build up other women. And so being mission aligned means waking up every day with excitement. Well, that's not really true. It's never going to be every day, but more often than not, waking up with excitement. Being mission aligned means doing something that lights you up. What I want to see women do, every one of you have a story. Every one of you has a story. And believe it or not, your story, someone else needs to hear. Your story, someone else needs to hear. You need to figure out from these examples and this meaning extraction, what is the story? What is the platform? What voice do you need to raise up in your leadership, in your company, in your job, in your family, in the people you're mentoring, the relationships you have? So this is the first step on that pathway, is first getting through the resilience of trauma. One thing I wanted to highlight on here, this is a next step I do with a lot of my clients. It's something you might want to explore on your own. You can also talk to me about it, but has anyone ever heard of Ikigai? Yes. Yes. Great. What was your experience with it?
Do you know who Peter Drucker is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I studied under him when I was a VP of an international nonprofit in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And he mentored me. He was very intrigued that I would be a VP in a Christian nonprofit at a time when Southern Baptist Cemetery were kicking the women professors out.
I remember that.
And when they hired me in this job, we got letters from donors saying God was going to condemn the ministry because women were not supposed to be in headship in any way over men,
Wow.
including being a leader. And so all that did was Peter became very interested in me. So he had a lot of connections with folks in Asia. We did a lot of work
Oh my
in
gosh.
Japan and Korea, particularly.
Yeah.
And so I had people that I met with because I started doing consulting work with them as well. And helped establish the Drucker Institute after he died
That's
at
amazing.
Claremont.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I heard this stuff in the, let's see, 1994, 95, 96 timeframe, because I was interacting with folks in Asia. And for instance, the guy who owned 7-Eleven in Japan, Masatoshi Ito, was good friends with Peter, and they were practicing that.
The Ikigai.
Yeah.
Did you end up doing your own as well, like your own Ikigai exercise?
I did. And, you know, I have probably in the course of my life experienced many of these events that, you know, have in this thing. So it's like every season of life brings you a new level of learning out of all these difficulties.
Amen.
Right. Yeah.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah,
Every
yeah,
season. And I think the
yeah.
key word here too is season, right? Because life is seasons. It's like the squiggly line.
Exactly.
It ebbs and flows.
Mhm. So I really resonate with
With
what
you.
you're doing. I am so excited that you have taken on the mission that you've taken on
Thank
to
you.
help women and help, you know, us kind of get out of the mindset of competition,
Yeah.
you know, because, you know, and I came into the corporate world when, you know, women were still not on equal footing with the guys, and you had to learn to compete with men in a different way.
Yep.
And,
So you know.
and yeah, and you know, the mindset that, you know, there are not that many women leaders. So if the guys are willing to accept you as a woman leader, you know, means you better watch out for all the other women that are trying to compete with you.
100%.
You know, that's what I see. You're going to help me pass.
We're trying to,
Yeah,
because
so I'm really excited. So
you
thank you.
well, that is so, like, I'm so happy you shared that story, because there is a realization that the competition exists for a reason, because women only had one seat at the table for so long.
Right. Right.
And you know, I'm sure you've heard of the queen bee syndrome. I'm actually working on a book right now called Long Live the Hive, because the queen bee syndrome's dead. And it's this idea that there can only be one woman at the top, and that's it. And I think that the world is changing, right? Because there are more women, our allies, our men allies are making space for us. We are working together, but we're not there yet. In fact, Ladies Level Up came out of mean girl experiences in my own life. Like, anybody know what mean girl means? Anybody dealt with mean girls? Yeah. So, but yeah, so thank you so much. What was your name?
Denise first.
Thank you, Denise. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. That was
I will follow
ready.
up with you.
I hope you will. It was a
I'm
really good testimony. But Ikigai, as Denise was saying, is about finding your purpose. As you can see, Iki means to live, Guy means with reason. And one of the things that we can do that I've done, if you have like work with Denise, work with others, I would encourage you to explore building an ikigai, because that is the starting point for you taking your next big step. It helps you understand, what are you good at? What are you passionate about? And what can you get paid to do? And then from that, you chart your brand, your positioning, your voice, your message, those kinds of things. So for me, I'll wrap my story up. My next big step that I took from this whole experience was last October. I packed my entire house up because I was like, I now realize I want to have a mission aligned life. I want to support women. I've had enough experiences now that I want to build this organization, train, mentor, coach, and consult. And so for me to be able to do that, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was living a great life, as you saw, but I was spending all my money, every single paycheck, eating at nice restaurants and going out and paying $3,000 in rent. So I was like, I can't afford to live in DC anymore and launch this business. So my cousin in Oklahoma had a place that he said, you can come stay for a little bit of money a month, all inclusive, and work on your business, work your day job, divert your extra funds into the business, and try to get started. So in October, I packed my entire 15, 16-year life up in DC. I drove this, what almost is basically an 18-wheeler across the country by myself. Never have I done it. My entire focus was not to reverse. I was like, if I just don't reverse, I'll be okay. So I was looking for like the gas stations where I could pull in and pull out. Several times I thought I was an 18-wheeler, got in the 18-wheeler line, only to be told that no, they won't gas up this in the 18-wheeler line. So then I had to wait 45 minutes, because you know how they do. But that's a picture of me in October of last year, hauling my car, hauling my cat, and hauling this, and driving 19 hours, 3 days, and 2,000 miles by myself. And again, doing it afraid. To do what? To leave glamorous, beautiful, fun, Michelin star restaurant DC, to Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, where I live in that garage apartment above that garage right there, right now. And that is where I'm at. That's my next big step. And so my encouragement to you is, as you go through this process, you may have to take a big step. To the outside world, it might look like a step backwards. It might not make sense, and it really might not be fun either, because I'm telling you, like, there's just only but so many places to eat out there, and pretty much everyone's married and has kids out there. There's not a lot of single professionals. But it's for a purpose, it's for a season. And there will be another season. And like I said, I've launched Ladies Level Up, which you see here, collaboration, not competition, where empowerment meets sisterhood. We are building this community. This community will be handpicked women that are in alignment with the values, that want to come together and network with each other. I've launched the coaching and consulting business, which is raising your voice, leading with confidence, moving from being silent to actually leading through influence. And now I want to know what you're going to do. So if I leave you with anything today, and thank you for indulging me, I want you to think about, how can you bounce back, make sense of the intel, and chart the next step for your life. And it doesn't even have to be a big step. It can just be a step. Like someone told me right one time, just do the next step. It doesn't even have to be the perfect, or just do the next step. Just don't be stuck. So give yourself grace. If you want to connect with me, you can scan this QR code. I am doing all my branding push now on LinkedIn. If you work with me, you'll understand why. All the data is showing that LinkedIn is the future. So all of my clients now are being encouraged to build brands on LinkedIn. And so if you have a phone, you can scan this QR code. You can also write this down. Reach out to me. We can jump on a call. We can chat. We can do Ikigai. One other thing I want to do is I want to recognize Danielle, who is one of the most amazing women I met virtually a year ago. Danielle Sands. Leave it, everybody. This woman is a mother, and also is launching a business to help women find ways to bring income in their house and still be in the role of mother. And she specializes in AI. We met through a virtual group online last year. And today, this moment in this meeting is the first time we met in person. So I'm so happy to see her. And I think we have a project coming up called My AI Bestie, which is a one-day workshop geared to make AI accessible to women. So we'll be talking more. If you connect with us, we'll give you information about that. But we just want you to know that AI is not something to be afraid of, can be your best friend if you know how to use her and work with her and be her buddy. So check out My AI Bestie. Did you want to say anything?
That's in my session. Do you feel like that's something that women would support? AI Bestie. Yeah, I think what I love about your session and yours, you're both, like, I love that you're getting free and low cost, because for someone that's not super techy, to get started, is overwhelming, you have to pay a ton of money or you don't know how to use it. So I really appreciate that you gave so many tools and the fact that you're willing to do the personalization of the, I don't know how to, IKP or whatever, I've done it, I don't know how it sounds.
Sticky,
but-
yeah,
I butchered it. But anyways, the fact that you guys are personalizing and customizing for people just getting started, that's probably the best value if you could continue to do that. Yeah.
Thank you for this. That's good feedback.
I think all the other we work well together. We became instant friends, but I think what connects us is our heart for women.
Yeah.
And it's genuine and it's pure. We really want to see others succeed as we succeed. We're really willing to teach women, whatever we learn, we want to teach as well. So she's amazing. Definitely follow her.
Yeah, follow her as well. She's got a lot of followers. So I know I'm stopping. I want to take a group picture if you're down for it. And I also want to let you know, right on the other corner, I have a ring light set up and I want to interview women just and ask you some questions if you're open about your leadership experience, because I'm doing some content around that. So if you, after this, and you're not, but also go to like the next seminar is amazing too. Like, I love her so much. It's Anisha, right? Yeah. So stay for her and then come after on this office over here. And I would love to get you guys on camera and ask. Can we take a group shot real quick? Davey, will you help us?
Got
with
to.
the group?
You can give it up to Hollywood.
I don't know how you guys know.
Oh, that's a whole nother story. After I knew he was on Bumble.
Right, tell me what Jack it was, girl, geez.
I was in DC for 15 years, dating all the wrong people, move away and within 1 month, not dating. No sense. No sense at all. All right, ladies, let's get together. You might have to use your phone. Unless you know you can.
We all did.
Oops, that's all right. You can take a picture with us if you want to, bud. Put you in the middle.
I don't know if I can fit. It's okay.
Oh my gosh, I feel the power, ladies, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies, level up.
Level up.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely want to bring the traffic. It's my part. Great, both of you, yeah, if you bring down and speak to them, giving them all the- So, we have a couple things I mentioned with our.
If you wish to stay in this room, next we'll be hosting Branding Beyond the Logo, Cultivating a Reputation with Follow-Up with Arnisha Hall. She is president of the Virginia Black Chamber of Commerce. She was also at the Women's Entrepreneurship Conference. She's excellent. Upstairs, we've got branding and marketing your tech startup. And in the meantime, we've got some snacks in the lobby. Thank you so much.
And the upstairs is it immediate?
Glad you're right.
Okay.
Follow me. Yep, I'll be over there.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably have to happen, and I filled in my email, so I won't forget. But.